All right, guys, here we are with another live session. Today we have Don, and I know I'm gonna mess this up. Don Fulano
You
Tequila,
got it.
and we have Sergio joining us today. He takes care of the East Coast, correct?
West Coast.
West Coast. Sorry, wrong side of the world. And he has been with them for how long now?
Um, about 3.5 years, be 4 years in June
Awesome.
with these guys.
So
Yeah.
you've been around long enough. You've seen the ins and outs, maybe a few
hmm
changes, because it sounds like that would be pretty close to COVID time.
It was, yeah, it's right in the middle of it.
Yeah, what a mess. But we all prospered and we're starting to live some of our best lives. I think that gave an opportunity to a lot of tequila masters to go out there and fine tune some of the product, maybe do some brand changes, whether it's bottles or maybe put in some new equipment into the building, whatever the case might be. And we saw that with a lot of other brands. But yeah, it's exciting to have you guys here, and um, hopefully some people will pick up on some new things. Hopefully we'll learn some new things, and I'm going to leave it up to you. So tell us about your journey in tequila, and tell us about the brand that you're representing.
Yeah, absolutely. So my kind of introduction to the tequila world is almost out of a movie. I was just kind of bartending in Hell's Kitchen in New York, and and then in walked in this smoky figure. That smoky figure being Guillermo Souza. This was 2013, 14. He happened to walk into my bar. It was a tequila bar at the time, but tequila wasn't really kind of the category it is today. And he walked in and he started asking me. He came in early, I remember. He was supposed to have a meeting with the manager. I had no idea who he was. And he kept asking me all these questions. I was trying to set up my bar, and in a way, he was kind of somewhat irritating me because he just kept asking questions about, "Hey, what's your favorite tequila? Have you ever heard of Fortaleza?" And I'm just trying to set up my bar. And then he did a whole staff training, and when I found out who he was, I started talking to him, and we chatted up, and he told me about the industry trip and that we have that Fortaleza hosts in Mexico in tequila. And I went on my
Mm-hmm.
first trip in 2014, I want to say. Met the whole squad, met Billy, met just kind of really just immersed myself in the whole, not only the craft tequila world, but just the industry as a whole. And yeah, and then they kept asking me to come back. So before I was full time with Don Fulano, I was actually a part time ambassador for Fortaleza. So I would go to all the industry trips. I would help Billy and Guillermo out anytime they needed me. I helped them open a couple new markets, and COVID hit, and Don Fulano had just started their partnership with Gallo Spirits,
Okay.
and he had a full time. I had just moved to San Diego, just needed a change of pace, and then Sergio from Don Fulano calls. He's like, "Hey, we have a West Coast ambassador job available." I had just gotten furloughed from bartending, and he said, "Yeah, absolutely, let's go. Say less. Let me know when to start." And then here we are, 4 years later, really in the thick of it. But when it comes to Don Fulano, to really understand kind of the history of the family is for the for Don Fulano and for the Fonseca and Sergio's family, it's really important for us to think of tequila as first and foremost an agricultural product,
Right.
right? The biggest thing for us is, you know, when we think of kind of the production of brands, right? We think of three pillars of agriculture, which is kind of the side we've really disconnected with, especially the last 5 6 years as the category has blown up. We have the craft aspect of it, which is the actual distillery, kind of the human element, and then you have the maturation, which is not just in casks, but in also glass and stainless steel. But the family we're the families that are fifth and sixth generation, sorry, fourth and fifth generation agave farmers, and
Mm-hmm.
they're first generation distillers. So when it comes to tequila producing, we're very very new to the game, and because we bought the family bought the distillery, La Tequileña, in 1986, I believe, or
Yeah.
89,
Yeah. I
and
believe that's
they were off to the races, really. And you talk to Enrique Fonseca, our master distiller, owner of the distillery, and he'll tell you that those first few years were rough, right? Just because no one really, a few of the workers kind of hung back to kind of teach them a little bit of the tricks of the trade, but he had no real frame of reference on how to kind of really kind of produce tequila, because again, these guys have that history of agriculture,
mm-hmm.
right? And it's it's through kind of the trials and tribulations, and talking to not only distillers in Mexico, but also he traveled to Europe and he talked to a lot of Irish and Irish and Scottish whiskey makers and
Mm-hmm.
French winemakers. So that's really kind of a lot of it. You see that a lot in the influence on how we produce tequila today, really, because that's really, really where he kind of got a lot of the kind of influence in his production method. Um, but
So
really, the
let me pause you there real quick because I find it real interesting. So the Forseca family was agave growers, but they were agave growers in the highlands, if if I'm remembering correctly. But
mhm,
now
yeah,
they're in the valley, and they kind of transition. And I was reading some stuff where they really wanted to build their own brand, and they wanted to make this amazing distillery, but things kind of got tossy turny for a little bit,
yeah.
and then this distillery, what we know as 1146, becomes available, and they buy it.
Mhm. Yeah, so that history is it's one of those things where in the 80s was kind of one of the first kind of real, like one of the first big booms of tequila, right? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
margarita culture was kind of booming, like the cocktails, whether granted they were probably being made with sour mix being made out of a bag, and peach schnapps cocktails. I'm sure you remember those days. But when the category of tequila grows, obviously the agave becomes more and more scarce, right? As more
Right.
people want the crop, the scarcer it gets. And remember, like agave or tequila, any agave distillate is really one of the few spirit categories where your raw material takes anywhere between 6 months to maybe over a decade to fully mature, right? Most other spirit categories, your crop kind of grows year round. So at the time in the 80s, there was a kind of a big boom of tequila. So agave was really scarce. And, when agave is scarce, the prices go up. The historically gone up and down throughout history. In fact, last year was one of the highest I think it's ever been. But
Yeah.
at that time, it was in the mid 20s, which was high for the time. And a lot of the tequila producers have gone. They got very frustrated with the agave prices. So they tried almost in a way to kind of strong arm some of the smaller agave suppliers into lowering their prices or canceling their contracts, right? So it's like, hey, listen, either you lower your prices or we pull all of our contracts. And to harvest agave is really expensive, right? There's
Yeah.
no machine that does it. It's and when the agave is really cheap, it's actually costs you more money to harvest the agave than it does to just let it rot.
Right.
So at that, and like you said, they always wanted to get into tequila production, but they didn't have a distillery to do it out of, and they didn't want to contract it out, or um and they didn't have time to build a distillery. And it just so happens that 1146 was for sale, so they bought the distillery and they were off to the races.
So they were agave farmers now dating back from current 140 years. And
Hmm.
that and they went through four generations of that. And now
Yep.
we have the fifth generation that is seeing another side of the business. Are they still growing agaves today in the highlands?
Oh yeah, one of the big things that separates Don Fulano from so all of our I say our, but they're all of their fields are in the highlands. The
Yes.
only thing that's really based in tequila is our distillery. So our agave is from the highlands, and we take it from a Totonilco, and then we take it to tequila to where the distillery is. So yeah, we are the biggest thing that separates Don Fulano from 99% of brands is that we are one of the last brands that's 100% family owned from ground to bottle, right? We grow 100% of the agave used to make Don Fulano, which is, again, for us having that ethos of seeing tequila as an agricultural product, because for us, that's everything, right?
Right.
We believe that mature agave, we actually developed the scale of agave maturity. So we use what's called agave pinto and agave maduro. Maduro means mature and pinto means stained, which is almost that category after maturity, almost to the point where it's about to rot. So it's super mature agave. So yes, we do still
And when you say
supply.
super mature agave, I mean, how many years generally are you
Well,
waiting
that's
to harvest?
yeah. So for us, for the family, we don't. It's not so much chronological, right?
Hmm.
The some of the biggest myths of agave is that it's chronological. We have agaves that are 6 years all the way to 12 years, right?
Wow.
So the big Sergio always says that agave does not it's not does not understand human time,
Hmm.
right? It's not chronological and it's not size, right? At 4 years, the agave is at optimum size, but it's not optimum maturity. For us, it's to look at the physiological properties of the agave, what's happening inside, right? And that's really what's more important to us than how old it is, because you could have 8 year agave that's not fully mature yet, but at the same time, you could have 6 year agave that's ripe and ready to be made into tequila.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. I mean, that's good to hear that they're just not pulling an entire field because one plant is showing maturity and to get those sugar contents that everybody's striving for to make such an
Right.
amazing tequila.
Yeah. We only really harvest maybe 30, like 25 to 30% of a field at any point, and then we'll keep visiting that field every few months to kind of, we hand select, right? On our bottle it says hand selected mature agave, and we believe in that because Sergio and Enrique always say that in order to make good tequila, you have to walk the fields,
Right.
right? You have to look at the tequila, take it not just the tequila, but the soil, right? You have to take care of the soil, which is, that's the biggest kind of area of sustainability for us. Is we've been using these fields for agave for over 100 years, and you want to keep using them for the next 100 years, right?
Mhm.
Right now, last year there was so much agave being planted, and people were just leasing land, right? We're just leasing land and just growing agave, and then every 4 years they would just harvest. 4 years harvest the whole field because when you're looking at an agave field as an ROI, right? You need that return on investment. You just okay, 4 years it's reached optimum size, so let's optimum size, optimum weight, right? Because we buy agave by weight, by kilo,
Mhm.
pesos per kilo. So, for us, once we finish a whole harvest, what's called arrastre, which means dragging, we'll do 2 rotations of different crops, usually chickpeas, legumes, pumpkins, citrus fruit, just to give the soil a minute to relax, to just chill out and reintroduce those vitamins and energy that the soil just needs so that you can so the next line of agave can grow grow better, because agave drain takes a lot from the soil, and we even sometimes do intercropping, which will have a line of agave and then a line of another crop. That's that way it's we because the land is ours, right?
Right.
For the families, and again we want to keep using this land so we can keep growing more and more agave.
Need to keep those nutrients in there. Keep us,
Exactly.
you know, getting these delicious agaves out of there. That way we're not raping the land to give us all what they can, and then, it'd be useless in 25, 50, 100 years.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's
because
amazing.
once you deplete that land, it's gone, right? Once you
Hmm.
completely, because you're just left with sand, and it's almost impossible to get that land back, right? Just once it's depleted of all the nutrients and the nitrogen and all, you're just left with sand, and it's all that, and that land is gone, which is really sad.
Is it as volcanic as it is down in the valley, in where their property's at?
So in the highlands of Jalisco is a super interesting area because we actually use more than 4 to 6 different types of soil. Right, we have kind of really brown soil, we have red soil, we have this really white chalk soil that's really kind of a lot very light, and then obviously and there is some volcanic soil there,
Hmm.
but the highlands, especially at Totonilco, is what we call the gateway to some of the most diverse animal life, soil types, just different areas, and it's all within maybe like 30 miles of each other. So yeah, we have different soil types that we use um, for our agave. So it's definitely higher up. Most of the agave is that red soil, kind of
Yeah,
looks like that tennis, like a
yeah,
tennis
tennis
court.
court. Yeah, yeah.
So
When
it's
we
a
were
lot.
down there not all that long
Yeah,
ago, oh, we got to
yeah,
drive by some amazing fields, and they
yeah,
meticulously, plant them. I mean, in very beautiful rows, and with the, to me, the green that you get out of the highland agaves, it's almost like a picture, that,
yeah,
and then you got the red soil. It is so meticulous. It is so beautiful. I mean,
yeah.
if anybody ever goes to anywhere, and they want to photograph agave fields and anything, highlands is definitely a place to go. I mean, they're still beautiful in tequila area or in the valleys, but man, that red soil with the color that you guys get out of it up there
Yeah.
is picturesque. I mean, it's just amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
It's
and there's a lot of agave farmers up there that really take care of their land, and so it's yeah, it's and not only that, you have different you have hillside agave, right, facing different directions. There's mountainous, there's valleys, there's flat soil. So really, like, there's such an abundant and
yeah,
rich amount of like soils and where you like and sources for agave.
yeah, amazing. So we go through 4 generations of basically farmers,
Hmm.
and then fifth generation comes along, and they want to expand what the family's doing, and they buy a distillery because they
Yep.
find that's probably more affordable than, you know spending a year or longer to build it, and then recoup their money out of it. So they buy this distillery and tequila in the valley of all places, when everything that they're doing is in the highlands. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's beautiful there.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, honestly, like, that distillery was bought, like I said, kind of almost more. They had kind of their backs against the wall, right?
yeah,
And they just didn't have time because they always had this idea of building a distillery, but it just so happened that they were kind of had their backs against the wall, and they had to either kind of sink or swim. And this distillery just happens to be in the Valley of Tequila, so yeah, I mean, it maybe was, no, I would say like accident, but there's a reason why there's so many distilleries in that town, right? You can just
yeah,
get some of the best, can get some of the best water um, in the town. And if you go, I'm sure you've been to Tequila, but all the distilleries are within a block or two from each
yeah.
other,
I mean,
right?
you
We're
could pretty
right
much
next door.
walk to every single one of them.
Yeah, we're right next door to Arete. We're down the street from Fortaleza. We have,
Yeah,
dozens others that are within walking distance, and there's a reason for it,
right.
and there's, there's not only that, but the people there are phenomenal, great workers. It's I believe Eduardo and I told me that tequila in its essence means the land of the working people. It's hardworking people. It's a super small town, and everybody's there. Kind of to really honor this amazing distillate.
So tell us about Sergio. I mean, what's his background? How did and not you, Sergio, but
Yeah.
yeah,
My tocaya.
yeah. I mean, he was obviously his grandfather was the farmer, right?
Yeah.
And was it him that had made the choice of getting into the distillation?
No, it was his uncle Enrique.
Okay.
His uncle Enrique Fonseca was actually it was his father, and both him and his father were really the ones that kind of start the production side of things. Sergio's family really, yeah, they're more in they have a long history of agave farming and competitive horse jumping.
Mm,
They have a very vast history in that. And I couldn't tell you exactly how he kind of got into tequila, but I know he was, studying abroad, and he somehow got involved with the brand. And Don Fulano was really kind of that's the brand that he really kind of spearheaded. Well, Enrique's got a bunch of other brands that come out
absolutely.
of distillery, but Don Fulano, I would say that's Don Fulano, Fuente Seca, and Cimarron. Those are kind of the main three brands that come out of the distillery that Sergio has his hands in. And I feel like Sergio kind of got involved at a young age, and I
Hmm.
don't think he ever looked back. You talk to Sergio just for 5 minutes, it's never 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes turns into 30 so quickly. He's so passionate. He's so passionate. He just can just talk, but you're just enamored with hearing him talk, just because he speaks from so much passion that he has about not just Don Fulano, but just really the essence of the spirit category, with the agriculture and the history behind it, and really the traditions that go into this distillate. So yeah, I couldn't tell exactly how him personally got into it, but when you hear him speak about tequila or agave, it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Great passion in there, right?
Absolutely.
And he will continue that conversation, I'm sure, for hours if you let him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but it's a great hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking to the people that have that much passion. It's definitely eye opening. And if anybody's ever questioning, I mean, the integrity of that distillery making amazing tequilas. I mean, let's take a look at some of the other stuff that's coming out of there. I mean, yeah, you got
Hmm.
Don Fulando, and it is a superb tequila. But I mean, if you're not familiar with, the gnome situation and how it all works, 1146 is producing Tears, which I mean is high on everybody's list of tequilas that we have to have. Forte Seca, um, Ardenum,
Yep.
which is a lot of people say is the baby of Tears. There's a lot of similarities,
Yep.
characteristics to it, and you guys got yours. I mean, talk about an amazing batch, and I know you have more.
Yeah.
Um, and you had a couple new ones come out late last year.
Yeah, we had a couple new ones. We have a couple collaborations. It's funny, you anything, especially most of our age expressions, you can always sense when Enrique has had his hand in this particular brand of tequila. There's something about how he ages that I can always tell that Enrique is behind this particular tequila. They say every distillery has kind of a flavor almost stamp, and
Mhm.
it's definitely apparent when with Enrique. Enrique is really, Enrique's been nicknamed the architect in the tequila making industry, and he's definitely earned that moniker. And he when it comes to a lot of the history of the aging of tequila was written in our distillery.
Nice.
But back in the day, it was just blanco and reposado. Añejo wasn't in the extra category, weren't really kind of as known. But this whole kind of idea of viewing tequila as a brown spirit was really due to a lot of the efforts of Enrique. Enrique was, I believe he told me once that when he bought the distillery, he had a couple of the people who had been working there hang back, and I think they literally told him, "Whatever you do, don't age your tequila over a year and a half." And he was like, "Why?" Because it'll ruin your tequila. And he was just like, "All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it anyways." Which is why we have one of the largest inventories of aged tequilas in Mexico, and we have tequila like the Fuente Seca 21 year,
Yeah.
right? Which if you ever find it, it's one of those unicorn. It's definitely pricey, but there's nowhere else you're gonna find a 21-year age tequila, right?
So, so on the Forte Seca brand,
Uh-huh.
I have a 7 year in my home inventory, but
Sure.
do you know offhand what the other year ranges are? I know
I
you
want to
got
say
quite a few, and then it pauses for a minute, and then it picks up and it runs again. And 21 year
yeah.
being the oldest.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't work with Fuente Seca. I just do Don Fulano, but we have the two blancos. So the blancos that they made were what called cosecha, which they hand selected a very particular agave field within an agave field within an agave field.
Mm.
It's we have a 2013, which if you ever find that, I believe that's one of the greatest blanco tequilas ever made. And then we have the 2018 Blanco also. And then I want we have the 5 year, I want to say 7,
Mm-hmm.
12, and I want to say 15 or
15,
17.
18, and then 22 or 21.
20. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think that's
crazy.
yeah.
So
And
if you
yeah, I
think
know
about
there's
how long it really took to make that tequila, so
yeah.
you got somewhere between hopefully at least 4 to maybe 8 years in the ground.
Mm,
You're harvesting it, and now you're resting it for 21 years. You know,
yeah.
like you were kind of hinting towards the beginning. These people who are making bourbons, and I'm not bad mouthing them at all. They just they can sometimes they can get two crops in and make two batches of spirits in one season, where
Yeah.
we have to wait. I mean, if you're starting from the Wellows that is coming off the mother plant, you got a little bit of a head start, but you're still really, I mean, you're at least another 3 to 5 years. I mean, once you put it back in the ground and it starts to take root, which, I got to see all that, and it's an amazing experience that I'll never forget of actually planting them.
Yeah.
And wow, I mean, and
I
again,
mean,
like
yeah.
you said, there's no machines that do it.
Yeah. No, it's all it's we say Sergio jokingly says tequila makes itself, right?
Hmm.
Because and all that really takes is time, right? And unfortunately, no amount of money is going to buy you a second of time. And for us, it's not just it's time in the fields, time to cook slowly, time to ferment properly, time to distill, time to let it rest, and time to age. There's so like time is such a important element to making your tequila because even our extra añejo, the imperial, the blue bottle, the
Hmm.
ceramic, that has up to the one you got, the one I'm saying you has up to 12-year extra añejo blended into it, and the new batch has up to 17-year blended into it. We're always blending different batches of tequila with different age statements, and every single expression of Don Fulano is a blend of different batches. When we go into production, we don't think of it as like, oh, today we're gonna make Don Fulano Reposado, right? We don't know really until kind of that first pass through the still what kind of flavor profile we're gonna get. We can test for sugar content and what have you, but really
Right.
the flavor won't come out I mean, it starts to develop in the fermentation, but we won't taste it until really that first pass through the still, that ordinario,
Mhm.
right? And so that's what's really beautiful about kind of being able to kind of take your time instead of just, you know, every single cycle process of just producing, bottling, which is, great.
Yeah.
But for us, we like to play around with what we call the library of flavor.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I dig it. I dig it a lot. So you got your own plants you're working with that
Yep.
is harvested, and I assume that it's trucked down from the highlands to Tequila.
Yep.
Which, I mean, if you've been in some of those alleyways, what a mess.
Yeah. It's a interesting journey for them to take.
Yeah, and then you got this beautiful distillery that you got. So tell us about some of the processes there. I mean, what kind of
Yes.
equipment are you using? What is your method of madness?
Yeah. Yeah. So we unload our trucks into the distillery, and then we load them into the autoclaves.
Hmm.
Autoclaves we do a really, really slow cook.
Low
Really slow
pressure.
cook. Yeah, low pressure, like lower than 1 atmosphere, and you just let it sit. Depending on kind of how much agave and a certain sugar, and we measure for what's called ARTs,
Hmm.
azúcares reductores totales, and that kind of helps us determine how long we're going to cook for. So that's usually between 36 to 48 hours, right?
Okay.
And then we let it kind of cool down. We unload the agave, we test it again, and then we either put it into our roller mill or we put it into our screw press, which is actually something that we designed. A screw press, which I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I haven't.
It's kind of like a mechanical tahona in a way, where it just presses and twists the agave fiber. It's extracting the juices. And then, so we do half of that, half through a roller mill. Then we do two types of fermentation, right? Fermentation, what's called with bagazo, which is roughly 30%, and then without bagazo, without the fibers, right?
Okay.
The fermentation aspect is really it's one of the kind of unsung heroes of tequila production. The reason why we choose mature agave, we cook slowly, we take care of all those steps so that when it comes to fermentation, we can just sit back and let it happen, right? We don't add, and the yeast that we add to it is actually made from agave. So we just kind of, sit back and let it kind of do its thing, right? When fermentation is really that aspect of your production where you can just kind of let it run wild, right?
Hmm.
Because that's unlike kind of beer and wine, that's your end product, right? We do open air for both, and just kind of let the fermentation really is kind of when the flavors are going to start to express themselves, right?
Hmm.
And those get combined, and then we do two types of distillation. We do roughly 10 to 15% in our column still, and then the rest will be in a pot still. The column still, when we bought the distillery, was really a tool that no one really was using at the time, right?
I
Column
mean,
still
that's
now is
made
way
mostly for
more
like scotches and whiskeys and vodkas,
Japanese
right?
whiskeys. Yeah, it basically it allows you to get a really high ABV, but you're really like you're making an agave vodka. So the first kind of few times I remember they were telling me about they played around with it. They were losing too much flavor. There's too many kind of still kind of layers. So they took, I want to say, more than half the plates off, and they discovered that the flavor profile was a very delicate, lighter, almost greener flavor profile, where obviously, which paired nicely with a bold, rich, super agave forward, kind of more traditional. So it gave us, and you can really get it in the blanco because it's easy drinking, but it's also complex, and that's what I like about kind of the two kind of types of stills that we use. It allows you to have an easier drinking, kind of lighter, delicate flavor profile, but with kind of all the rich and complexities and layers that you get from the pot still, right? Um, so once done distillation, we'll taste, and we'll either, if we feel like it has all the elements that we're looking for in a Blanco, we'll let it rest. We always let it rest at least 2 months. We'll let it rest in either stainless steel tanks or glass, which is not as rare, or acrylic, or we'll age them in our casks. For Don Fulano, we use exclusively European oak. If you've tried a reposado, it's a super
And that's what I'm
balanced.
drinking tonight.
Oh yeah,
I ended up finding some at a bar, and it's like, let me try it. And then I ended up having to go and buy a bottle. I enjoy it a
which
lot.
uh, which batch is it? What year is it? It says it on the bottle. It'll say DFR on the right in the front there. Yeah, every bottle says
DFR 21.
There you go. So 2021. Nice.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying it. And it hasn't actually been in our area. I think it came into our area last year. So, people are just now starting to get into it and enjoy it here in the Midwest. So, yeah. And man, I see it. I'm starting to see it at some of the restaurants and stuff. So they're doing well with it here, with some of the demand that's already been generated, and hopefully we'll generate some more for you. But
yeah,
no, I mean, yeah, the repo, yeah, to me that's a home run. Unfortunately, I haven't tried all the other expressions yet. I hate to open up those beautiful little bottles. Those are more to a souvenir piece to me. I look at them and it's like, I don't want to open them.
well, they're really cool.
Yeah, they are little cool pieces to have and display with, some of the trinkets I bring back from Mexico and stuff like that. But
nice.
I want to get into that high proof. I haven't had a chance to get into that yet.
Yeah, so that was actually the first expression that we came out with in 2002. We celebrated our 20-year anniversary the year before last in December. We had that very, if you find it, we had a 20-year anniversary edition bottle that came out, which was super nice.
I was really, really hoping to get my hands on a bottle of that. I was seeing some killer reviews on some of the groups and stuff, but for some reason they did something crazy here in the Midwest with it and only distributed it through restaurants, and it never hit the shelf stores. So
I'll see if I can find one for you.
Yes. I mean, some of the stuff that you guys have done and came out with, and some of the ingenuity. And I was hoping to visit, while I was down there in Mexico about a month ago. We couldn't get the times lined up.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see those amazing distills that you have right there on the property. They just look so bold and beautiful. I mean, some of the pictures I find online of your guys' distillery, it's just it's kind of rustic, classical, sexy, with the different colored tanks and fermenting distills.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. So yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, you'll have to come back and visit us sometime.
I'm already working on the next trip.
Nice,
Already working on it.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
so you mentioned
sorry,
that you use all European oak barrels.
Yes, sir.
So you're not changing those out on a regular basis. They've probably been there a long time, huh?
I mean, I once asked. I love that every time I see Enrique. I love just bombarding him with questions, just of stuff that he doesn't usually like to talk about. And I once asked him, "Hey, what's the oldest tequila that you have in a barrel?" And I think his answer was he just stopped, looked at me, smirked a little, said 1991, and then kept going. So he's got so much. We have such a variety, of of age statements and tequilas. But yeah, for Don Fulano, we do have some Canadian rye, some Calvados. I know we've mostly Burgundy, Limousine, Nevers, Hungarian. but mostly for Don Fulano, we exclusively use French oak, except for the Imperial. The Extra Añejo is finished in Oloroso sherry cask for about 2 to 3 months. But we'll do blends. I think Cimarron is a blend of Canadian rye. I know the Artenam is also a blend. So yeah, blending is really the part that really just I love talking about, just because it's just this kind of mad scientist approach to tequila, blending different flavor profiles and getting that complexity through. The only way you can really do that is having the inventory to do it, right? And we are lucky to have such a vast inventory of tequilas to choose from, and through that kind of triangular tasting method is how they're able to get a layer of consistency, but also kind of it's subjective, right?
Right.
The way it works is they basically take 3 glasses, and kind of whoever the panel is at the time, and they have one of them that's kind of like a new batch, right, of Don Fulano, let's say Blanco, just for argument's sake, and the other 2 are what's called a reference point, which is either kind of what was made before or what they believe is the best expression of Don Fulano Blanco. So obviously the first time around is pretty easy to kind of tell which one of the new batch is. And if you and I are on the tasting panel, I come to you, well, CJ, what do we need to add to this new batch to get closer to where we need to be? Mm-hmm. And it could be minerality, it could be fruit elements, it could be citrus, it could be sweet. So for us, we just use our tequilas to fill in those blanks, right? Where you could just, if it's lacking sweetness, we could just add, some kind of additive to it, right? And then it'll taste exactly what we need it to taste like. But for us, it's, using these tequilas, and then we'll keep that process going until, we can't really tell which one the reference point is. And that's how we know where, okay, this batch is almost ready. But the beautiful thing about that is sometimes this new batch is really, really good. It's better than what we've made in the past. So then that now can become the new reference point, right? Andres, who is our ambassador in Mexico, has one of my favorite quotes. He said, "Consistency is evolution," right?
I like it.
We are always evolving, right? Even at a microscopic scale, the planet is changing. Everything is moving, right? Climate is changing every year. So. And they say our palate changes as well, right? They say every 7 years your palate almost resets and changes, and you're kind of more sensitive to certain flavor profiles. So there's that beauty of making a craft spirit, right? Which is why we have, the what's this right here, batch 15, Don Fulano Blanco 2023. So that's the batch number, the expression, and then the year. And we'll get text messages all the time being like, hey, we got this batch. Well, they'll text us a label. This batch of Blanco Reposado is the best you guys have ever made. And, so there's a layer. I love that. There's a layer of slight differences. It's kind of like wine, right? Where they say there's no good brands, there's good vintages. And that's how we, I feel like there's an approach somewhat like that to wine, which is kind of in its most basic kind of element. That's what tequila is, right? In fact, the old name for tequila was vino mezcal de tequila.
Yeah,
mezcal wine from tequila, right?
That amazing story there. It's just, I'm just blown away. I mean, the whole thing with the different lots, and you do get people who chase these lots down. I don't do it often, but I pulled the trigger on a batch here that my wife doesn't know about yet. You got to do that every once in a while. You can't pass up opportunity always. I'll ask for forgiveness. I'll ask for forgiveness and not permission. But I mean, it's you just find something and you got to have it. And with you also talking about, the mad scientist thing, those guys have a whole different level of thinking. I mean, they're almost like master chefs. I had the great pleasure of hanging out with one of the larger, more predominant Crazy Man while I was there in Mexico, and their adrenaline is on a whole different scale. I mean,
Yeah.
it is super crazy. And we were only supposed to be there for a couple hours, and it ended up turning into 9 hours of hanging out, drinking tequila, and questioning one another with, what is it that you enjoy the most? Why is it that you do this? Why is it that? And then those Hungarian barrels started coming out, and he's like, "This is an experiment." And then he starts playing with it. And to me, that
Yeah.
would be so amazing doing it with what it sounds like. I mean, your master chef is doing it and his energy level. To me, those guys are just they're amazing. They're Gordon Ramsays of the tequila industry. They just have
Yeah.
all the energy and drive that makes it fun.
And there's that really that, and they want to just keep getting better, and
Yeah,
they want to, because, like, they always say that, they'll never tell you that they're experts in the category. They're always, they don't, I think, Vic even said, we don't know agave. We understand, like, we respect it. We might have a small understanding, but they're always learning. I mean, just if you, I mean, if you just go back to, like, the source, and um how complex the agave plant is, and kind of what it has to go through to reach maturity, and how
right.
many defense mechanisms, and everything that's around you wants to eat you. And there's so many layers that of understanding that the agave has for us to comprehend, for us to just think that we understand this plant is outrageous, because it gives so much. And there's a reason why the old kind of cultures in the continent worshipped this plant, right?
Yeah,
They named they kind of named two gods after it. Like, there's a reason for that, because it provided not just in tequila, but just textiles, and medicine. And there's so many things that agave can give, that tequila is just one of the literally kind of the small parts that we can get from this stuff.
yeah. It is definitely an amazing spirit and an amazing plant. I mean,
Yeah.
to see it in the highlands, in some of the fields. I mean, it's also a work of art. I mean, it's always so symmetrical and beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
it's truly a beautiful plant. So,
Yeah.
all right, can we expect anything for 2020? The rest of 2024 from 1146.
Ooh, I mean, what am I at liberty to even talk about? I know, in terms of
Everything
new
here,
brand,
everything's a secret here.
I don't know. With Don Fulano, well, the extra añejo has gotten a new bottle. So if you get in a bottle of the extra añejo, doesn't look kind of what you're used to, it's okay. We've changed the bottle just a little, just slightly. The
Okay.
blend is a little different. Like I said, this has up to 17-year extra añejo blended into it.
Wow.
So you'll if you taste side by side, there's definitely some differences between the last batch and this new one. In terms of the other brands, I can't really
Yeah, yeah,
check that
yeah.
out. I
I'm not.
really don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not asking. I,
I just
more
I don't even
interested.
know. Yeah,
I'm interested in seeing what you guys are doing. I mean,
yeah,
you came out with that amazing 20-year last year. Seemed like everybody and their brother was giving it kudos and thought it was an amazing uh, expression that you guys have released. Beautiful display. Um, I just didn't know if we could expect something, you know, small batch or
special.
yeah, 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 something special for the new year
Yeah.
or maybe early 2025.
Yeah, no, we're still looking to build Don Fulano. I think that's kind of the mission still, is to build kind of the core five, in this year. We did the 20-year anniversary. We did do 10 also. So I don't I mean, never say never, but who knows? Maybe down
Yeah.
the lines, these guys get inspired and make something new. But if you see anything that out of 1146, definitely you want to snag that up, because these guys are really doing a lot of really cool stuff at that distillery. And just because it comes from the same distillery, that you'll get two completely different products, with always that Enrique stamp, of course. But if you ever come across that Fuente Seca 2013 Blanco, I highly
I
recommend
kind of
it,
write
because
that one down.
there's none left anywhere, and it's one of those kind of 4-leaf clover bottles. Or if you find it, you're in luck, because it's virtually pretty much gone at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they just sold out of the 2018 bottle
Oh
here
yeah.
in the Midwest. And I hear we got 2021 getting ready to hit the area here pretty soon. Is that
Oh,
correct?
nice. I think so. I hope so. And I've been asking Enrique when the next Fuente Seca Blanco's coming out, just because they're always incredible. But I mean, man, these new batches of Don Fulano are some of the best. This new añejo that we made, I mean, there's something, I don't know. This new batch of that are coming out of the distillery is really really good. So anything that you see in 2024 is just not the other ones aren't good, but there's some this new batch is really really good.
So you're saying I got a sample of that sitting over here on my shelf?
Pretty sure that's what I sent you. Pretty sure that's 2024. But
That one doesn't have a label on it. Maybe I'll get into that one.
okay, nice.
I'm excited. All right. Well, if you got anything else to add, any little blips that you want to throw in there, what you guys might be doing for visiting tours or anything like that, where we should be looking for you.
Well, on literally a week from Monday, we have the whole team of Don Fulano coming to San Diego. So if you're in San Diego, come visit us. We're going to be doing a little party at Crafted Coop in North Park,
Okay.
6 to 9. You'll probably catch us at Tales of the Cocktail this year. If you go to Bar Convent, Brooklyn, you'll definitely see a little booth of Don Fulano there. So you can definitely catch us there. Other than that, just, I feel like this is a big year for Don Fulano. The brand has been growing just exponentially every year. It's really, really cool to kind of see, the growth of this brand. And we're just, there's a really fun time for Don Fulano. So yeah, if you see a bottle, definitely snag it. And we look forward to kind of seeing what this next phase of the brand looks like.
Awesome. Well, if you'll hang in there with me for 2 seconds, we'll go ahead and
Yeah.
cut this off. I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. If you have any questions, maybe we can get Sergio to stick around and maybe answer some questions on the Facebook group here. And hopefully we got most of your questions answered. Thank you, and you all have a great night.
Thank you.